Should you pull for Firefly or should you pull for Jade? That's the question I'll try to explain in this video. There are quite a lot of new info that's come out in these last few days about these two characters' kit. New things that changes their whole playstyle. And I'm gonna be discussing everything in detail. So leave a like if you enjoy this video and let's get started. First, let's talk about Firefly, as she is probably going to arrive in the first half. She's a fire destruction main DPS unit and has a break focused playstyle. Now I did make a video earlier explaining her kit and all, but there are a lot of changes to that now, one of which makes her a totally different character in terms of value. So, to give you a bit of context, what is this break playstyle? Well, it's kinda similar to the dot playstyle, where you don't build any crit on your characters and just rely on applying as many damage over time debuffs on the enemy as possible. Dots that do not crit and only deals damage based on the unit's attack stat. And similar to that, the break playstyle also does the same. The damage dealt is solely based on the break effect of the unit. It doesn't take crit into account. Actually, it takes it to the next level, where the break damage does not take any stat into consideration from the unit's side. The only thing that affects break damage is break effect and any kind of debuffs on the enemy's side, like rest penetration or defense down. And this makes the unit easier to build and much more consistent. You do not have to tackle the RNG of critting in the battle, and as a result, the damage remains consistent throughout the run. Now the only downside to this playstyle is that the character only deals break damage when they break the enemy. Only at that very moment. They don't deal any break damage when the enemy is broken or when they are not broken. And this is why break playstyle wasn't as popular up till now. But with the release of the Harmony MC and the concept of super breaks, which allows the character to deal break damage when the enemy is in the broken state, it made possible for the break playstyle to compete with other playstyles on equal ground. And since Harmony MC is available to all the players, anyone can play break teams. But still, every challenge in this game needs 2 teams, and there is only one Harmony MC. So it makes it so that a character like Firefly, who wants to be played as a break DPS, is heavily reliant on the MC. But to fix this issue, now all the break DPSs have their own super break damage built into their kit, so they don't have to rely on the MC. This concept was first introduced with Bootle, who is this game's first pure break DPS. And even though Firefly initially didn't have her own super break damage, but after the current changes, she can also do super break damage on her own, which makes her super self-sufficient as a damage dealer. Of course, adding Harmony MC into the team will increase the damage significantly, as the super break damage from the Harmony MC will be added with the super break damage that Firefly deals herself. But if you're using Harmony MC on another team, now Firefly can be played even without the MC. And with all these aspects of consistent damage, ease of build, and self-sufficient, then there is her own personal qualities. Like she applies 5 weakness to the enemy that is guaranteed to land, which makes her viable against any sort of enemy. And she has self-action advance, which lets her take more turns. But most of all, we know that destruction characters are counted among the best damage dealers of Honkai Star Rail. Even after a year of its release, the meta still favors the destruction path. Like in every tier list, Jingliu and Lune always stays on top. Just ignore the Umbrella Girl here, as she defies all the rules of this world, and we do not talk about that. My point is, in the endgame of Honkai Star Rail, there are 3 major challenges. First is the MOC, which is more of an all-rounder and favors every kind of playstyle. Then there is Pure Fiction, which heavily favors erudition characters like Argenti or any unit that can deal AoE damage. And lastly is going to be the new upcoming Apocalyptic Shadow that is said to be some sort of boss hunt challenge, which will favor single target heavy hitters like all the hunt units. And the crazy part is, destruction characters are already great for any of these 3 challenges. They have the insane damage numbers of a hunt unit with the extra reach of the erudition units, as pretty much most of their attacks always hit 3 or more targets. So a destruction unit which has great consistent damage, is easier to build, and can tackle any type of challenge is always worth your jades. By the way, if you've reached to this point of the video and like what you're watching, consider subscribing to the channel, as it does help this channel grow and motivates me to make more content for you guys. Now let's talk a bit about Jade. What makes her good and why you should or shouldn't pull for her? Well, she's a quantum erudition unit, who is sort of a sub-DPS or an enabler, if you want to call it that, where she needs another unit to pair with her to take full advantage of her kit. To give a brief introduction of her kit, is that she has this unique buff called Debt Collector, and she can give this buff to a single ally in a team, including herself. But you do not want to give it to Jade herself. You always want to give this buff to someone else, a unit that can target multiple enemies, an erudition character, because what this buff does is that it increases the speed of that ally, and whenever that ally attacks the enemy, Jade will do additional damage with that attack and will consume a bit of HP from that ally. Also, this is the main part. Based on the number of target hit, Jade gains stacks, and after reaching certain amount of stacks, she does a follow-up attack, which is also AoE. So by herself, she is not that good, as if she herself becomes the Debt Collector, she won't get the speed buff. And you need that, as that will allow the buffed unit to take more turns, which will result in more attack from said unit. which will then give more stacks to Jade, and that will result in more follow-up attacks. So now you understand that she kinda needs another character, a damage dealer to pair with her, which is not wrong, as dual DPS teams are quite good. As of now, only the Blade Jingliu team and some other teams were popular, but with Jade, dual DPS teams will become way more popular than it was ever before. But also, do not sleep on her personal damage either. Her damage contribution is quite impressive, and on top of that, she has a ton of self buffs, like she gives herself up to 120% crit damage and 25% attack, which makes her very easy to build. And as her playstyle is a sort of an enabler, she has less chance of getting power crept. And based on that very reason as well, enablers and sub DPSs may not seem valuable at the moment, but they usually get released ahead of their time, and down the line they become great. And Jade might be someone like that. Dual DPS playstyle sure is great, but it's not as popular as Hypercarry or Dot playstyle, as it needs two well-built damage dealers. But that pays off, as the resulting damage is insane and really consistent. So at the end, it's going to be a decision based on preference and account. Like if you have other Erudition characters to pair up with Jade, if you do have that, then she becomes a really good character. Some of you might have a benched Jingyuan or Himeko, and Jade will bring those characters back into the meta. But it doesn't mean she can only work with premium characters like Argenti or Jingyuan, as through my calculations, one of her best teammates is Herta, as pretty much all of her attacks are AoE. And Jade doesn't have any restrictions about follow-up attacks or anything else. Any and every attack that the Debt Collector does will grant Jade a stack. So in total, Herta gains extra damage and speed from Jade, and Jade gains more stacks from Herta. With all this, she actually becomes one of, if not the best teammate for Jade. One more team combination that I want to shed light on is Blade, who is not an Erudition character, but has the potential to become one of her best teammates, as Blade also has follow-up attacks which triggers when he loses HP, which is why Jingliu was so popular with him, as she consumes her allies' HP when she uses her skill. And Jade does something similar to that, but better. Jade's Debt Collector buff will consume a bit of that unit's HP when they deal damage, and Blade consumes her own HP when he attacks. And the fun part is that these two things happens on a totally different intervals. Blade consumes his HP at the start of his attack, and Jade consumes his HP when Blade's attack deals damage. So this allows Blade to gain 2 stacks in one attack, making Jade a way better teammate for him. Also, as Blade's follow-up attack is AoE, Jade gains more stacks. So it's a win-win situation for both parties. So if you have a Blade laying around but do not have a Jingliu to pair him up with, Jade becomes a worthwhile investment. These are just a few examples of what Jade can do to all these old forgotten characters. Her kit overall is pretty straightforward and doesn't really have a lot of complications to it. It's a straightforward, solid kit design. It does what it meant to do and does it better than anyone else. And that factor makes her worth pulling. So now that we talked about both of these characters, and both seems pretty great in their own way, but who is better in terms of value? Who is better if you're a new player? And who is better if you're a veteran? Well, to give you a straight answer, it's gonna be Firefly. And the only point that makes her superior to Jade is her being self-sufficient. Both characters have great teams, both are really easy to build, but Jade requires other characters to perform well. Of course, she makes all these characters way better than they were ever before, but also these characters in turn makes Jade perform well. And if you're a new player, or someone who doesn't have a big roster of well-built characters in their account, getting Jade will either be an expensive investment or she will be benched for a while before you have the right team to play her in. Firefly, on the other hand, is a character that also requires proper team to shine, but the only character that she really wants are Harmony MC, who everyone has, Ruanmei, who everyone should have, and Gallagher, who was free from an event last patch. And also, even though both units are easier to build, Firefly only just need break effect and nothing else. Wait for my full build guide on both of these characters, which will be out right after the version livestream. So yeah, all these points makes Firefly a more valuable unit than Jade at the moment. But then again, these are all just my personal thoughts on them, and feel free to share your own thoughts on the comments. And of course, thanks to everyone who did so in my last community post, where I asked the same question about Firefly and Jade. All the comments really helped me to understand and make this video. And with this, I've shared my own thoughts as well. So share what you guys think. Thank you so much for watching this video, and I'll see you guys in the next one soon.